Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to this afternoon's session, I Want to Go Mobile. I apologize for the grammar. Before we start, my name is Michael Platt. I'm a Director of Architecture in Microsoft here up in Redmond. And I'm looking at Microsoft's mobile strategy, what we're doing in terms of how we're pulling the various products and the elements of the products together and so on and so forth, and how we're going to push those out to the field and then out to the customers. So that's my responsibility at the moment. Today's a panel session with a number of people from around the industry. It's around discussion. We obviously have our own ideas, and we'll talk about those to a certain extent. But what I'm really looking for this afternoon is to answer your questions, for the panel to answer your questions, and to get some discussion going around areas and topics that are of interest to you. So, straight on from that, I'll go into introducing each person in turn. First of all, as Eric, and I'll ask each member of the team just to give a couple of words about themselves and what their interests are. So, Eric?
Sure. Hey, I'm Eric Breitbart, and I work at Schematic. We're a digital design agency, so we do design and implementation for marketing and other destinations. Like we did ABC's full episode player, and on the mobile side, we do a lot of work for Viacom in financial services, and at this point, it's mostly prototyping and mobile marketing strategies, and it'll be interesting to talk about what that means. We were talking about in general about what the mobile marketing environment is like, and Schematic is now part of WPP, which is a huge advertising conglomerate, and we're looking at how to get into this territory in a way that respects the intimacy of this device. And so I can see two competing paths forward that are probably both going to happen. And one is you're a big box retailer, and we're talking about location-based devices, and you want and the retailer wants to put an application on your mobile phone that lets you know when there's a product on sale that's going to be of interest to you as you're nearby that one of their stores. And that's cool. That's valuable. I mean, as a person who wants a good deal and goes to that store and I approve of that application, that's something that I'm interested in. I think we want to talk about when that gets intrusive and when it's not. But then I get into that store and there's a mattress for sale, and there's a sign that, of course, they'll compete with any price from any other place where you can buy mattresses. And so I pull my phone and I go on the internet and I'm like, hey, these other guys across town have it for $200 cheaper. How about that? And so those are two kind of different, and maybe they're not competing visions of the way that that mobile works with these corporations, and this extrapolates out not just for retailers, obviously, so that's it's that puzzle and the end value for me as a customer that we want to sort out and provide as we're looking for how to leverage this medium for enterprise and for all of us.
Okay, thanks. Next is David Michel. I think is it Michel or Michael?
Michel.
Michel, right, okay.
So, I'm just going to stand up because I have a hard time talking when I'm sitting down. My name is David Michel Davies. I'm the Executive Director of the International Academy of Digital Arts and Sciences. I'm sorry I have 3 names and a very long title. I'm not that pretentious, I promise. When I saw the title of this panel, I was telling Michael that when I saw the title of this panel, Want to Go Mobile, I feel like we've actually just gotten very close to the point where I no longer say, no, don't do it. And the reason that is for a very long time, everybody thought they should be going mobile. Marketers wanted to go mobile. Executives were telling them that they should be going mobile. But then what was actually built was often something that didn't work, that didn't meet an actual need, and that people didn't use. And so then really what was being built was something that people could write about in the paper to tell other people about how cool the project they worked on was. I don't think this is the future of mobile. I think we're finally getting to a point, though, where that is actually changing. And what I just want to briefly talk about is I have 3 slides just to show you some projects that I think are sort of representative of what you can do, what a very small organization can do, or an organization that's not doesn't have a 50-person IT department. Some things that are very simple and easy, and they're not going to be nearly as technical as probably what you're used to, but I always think it's worth exploring the sort of simplicity in the beginning. So the first one is a project done by Seafood Watch. This is a campaign put on by the Monterey Bay Aquarium. Monterey Bay Aquarium is a beautiful museum in Monterey, California. And they have this campaign to help people understand what sort of fish is toxic and what isn't, depending on where they are. They made a mobile site. It's very simple. I think it's a 5-page total site. It works on any browser that can deal with general WC3 mobile compliance standards. And all it is it has the geography of the country broken up: West Coast, East Coast, Southwest, Southeast, North. And if you're in a restaurant, you can go to the website. You can look at what's on the menu and compare it to what they say is, whether that's toxic or not based on the area you're in, and maybe what you should order instead. Extremely simple. Sounds really boring. Monterey Bay Aquarium went mobile. It's a really great example of an organization like that can do that. So the next slide is something called Bloody Legends. This is actually a campaign that was run out of, I believe it's the government of New Zealand. There's a big problem in New Zealand, I guess. There's a lot of drunk driving. And what they did is they explored and they found that it turns out that people really want to stop their friends from driving drunk, but they're kind of embarrassed about the whole thing. They don't want to tell them. They feel bad about saying anything. So this is a sort of a poster, and that's actually a coaster, for beer. And what happens is they would put these up in bars, and if you're with somebody who's sort of drunk and you don't think they should drive home, there's a phone number on the posters, and you can text your friend's phone number to the poster, and a funny person calls your friend a recording and says, this is a very serious message, your friends want you to know. And so all these people, nobody really knows who sent it, there's an anonymity to it, but it accomplishes the goal. Again, this is not a very high-tech organization, but they really looked at why people weren't telling their friends to stop driving drunk, and they solved a problem with a very simple mobile solution. And I guess the last slide is sort of the most complex and technical, but the reason I brought this is sort of a funny story behind it. You might have heard of this. It's called Quick. It's a piece of software that you can put on many mobile phones. It allows you to stream live video to the web. A lot of people are excited about this because we're going to start streaming live Twitter feeds and all this crazy sort of social computing that we are hoping that one day we'll all want to actually pay attention to. Why I think this is interesting is because a friend of a friend of mine actually uses this application What he does is he puts it on his phone and he takes it upstairs and he points the phone at his daughter as she's sleeping, who's a year and a half old. And then he goes downstairs and he has a baby video monitor that he made out of his phone for no cost. So I think it's interesting. All three of these are interesting because these are three things that people actually studied what people do, or in this case, in the last one, he used this technology in a way that it wasn't really created for, and came up with something that was extremely useful to people, was simple, and didn't really require huge departments and lots of development. So I think that's kind of an interesting thing and something that we should all, as you guys are developing, always consider that sort of like what's the easiest thing we can do first.
Okay, my name is Lok Wee. I work in developer marketing in Microsoft and in Windows Mobile, developer marketing basically. I'm technical by nature. Spent many years building applications for Microsoft platforms and then moved to mobile. What I work on these days is obviously instruction and education, teaching developers who are not necessarily mobile how they should go mobile, or what are things to consider when going to mobile. Like, there are a lot of things that you can talk about, for instance, infrastructure requirements, what are the data connectivity issues, how about screen resolutions, different form factors. But what I am passionate about is not just using the mobile device as a window to a world, but mobile device as a complement to the world, if you understand what I'm saying. So using the mobile device as a partner, as a sensor, if you like to take Michael's analogy, to be able to tell where you are, what you're doing, what is the context, what are you doing at the moment, how's your mood, for instance, to do all kinds of interesting solutions or applications that you can create based out of that. So one way is you can build an app on phone, try to squeeze it into the screen that connects to the rest of the world. That's one way of doing it. The other way is having it be intelligent enough to tell you what you like, where you are, who are you with, and be able to react based on services in the cloud and so forth. That's what I'm passionate about. And we worked on a lot of projects on mobile. If you have time, you can come to the device bar. I can show you some interesting technologies that we built using 2D data matrix, using like barcode scanning, but using a camera, and then having to do with augmented reality, projecting 3D images within or using the camera onto real life. So those are some of the interesting things that we've worked on.
Derek.
Hello, my name is Derek Owen. I'm the president and co-founder of Intercasting. My background previously was in media and technology. I was COO of MP3.com and the president of Vivendi Universal's Internet Music Group. My co-founder was, in 2002 when we were acquired by Vivendi, my business partner today had the opportunity to drive Vivendi Universal's internet strategy in North America, and so he bought this company called PWS, which was a ringtone provider. And I told him, dude, you're in a pet rock business. This is bad for your career. You shouldn't do that. That pet rock business became a billion-dollar industry. And then in 2004, when we both left Vivendi, we were looking at sort of what the next opportunities in mobile were. And one of the things we saw was MMS. I think there was a statistic at the time that said the average number of pictures taken by a consumer was 12. The reason that it was 12 was because that was the amount of memory you had on your camera phone, and you couldn't figure out how to get the pictures off of the phone. And so we set out to try to figure out a way to get pictures off the phone in a way that made sense to consumers. And so in 2004, we started focusing on what we called at the time mobile social networking. We approached Verizon and said we wanted to launch a product. They're like, what the hell is mobile social networking? We said it's going to be big, trust us. And so we went down the path. That product that we launched in 2005 with Verizon was called Rabble. Rabble is a mobile-only social networking product that's currently on deck with every carrier in the U.S. except for U.S. Cellular. In 2006, we had actually looked at where mobile social networking is going, and we saw a lot of the big social networking sites not coming into mobile, and there's a lot of reasons for that. Carriers are hard to work with. the business models on the web aren't the same as the business models in the carrier world. Integration into devices is hard. And so we actually turned our product into a platform product called Anthem, which is essentially a social networking aggregation product. Today, Anthem is live with Sprint, Boost, Virgin, T-Mobile US, T-Mobile UK, 3UK, and Hong Kong CSL, powering about a dozen sites. What I'm excited about is that although social networking is an interesting trend, I have 500 friends on LinkedIn, but I don't know, probably less than 25% of those people. The real social network is the address book on my phone. Those are the people I care about. And a lot of what we're doing as we drive forward, today we work with Brew, J2ME, Windows Mobile, Flash, RIM devices, Hip-Top, a little bit of Symbian, is being able to drive that experience of social networking down to the device and actually truly be able to extend communication, because at its core, social networking is communication. The phone at its core is communication, and trying to find interesting ways to bring media and share content and drive that to the consumer is what we're excited about and focused on.
Thanks, Ray. Okay, so, Chad, sorry. Nearly forgot you.
I always knew that having a last name that starts with S always puts me at the end of the line. But I'm Chad Stoller. I'm the Executive Director of Emerging Platforms for a digital marketing agency called Organic. Organic is owned by Omnicom, and it's been in business about 14 to 15 years. As the Executive Director of Emerging Platforms, it's a pretty cool title to have in an industry where people look at titles like that and think it's a really cool job. But it is really cool, actually. Essentially, what I'm in charge of is basically three silos of work that I need to do. One is internal inspiration, which is getting all the developers and all the creatives and all the strategists within my organization up to speed on emerging platforms, new technologies, and new consumer behavior. Second job that I have is client innovation. And what that allows me to do, and it's no secret, it's my favorite part of my job, is I run a small R&D rapid prototyping lab. So what we do is we take ideas that we think are interesting, or we leverage new opportunities that are available to us, and we demonstrate our thinking and we demonstrate opportunities for our clients. We were talking earlier is that it's one thing to go into a meeting and show somebody something on a slide, but the reality is that if you can put an idea in somebody's hands, chances are it's going to go somewhere. So what we like to do is we have rapid development schedules, we build tools, and we show them to our clients, and we show them to the media. And what happens is it turns into a great expression of our ideas and also our understanding. Third thing that I do is I basically represent Organic when it comes to the world of media, and also the developers, and essentially work with as many people as we possibly can to kind of figure out and formulate our approach to how do we leverage new technologies for our clients. A lot of people and a lot of companies have very different approaches towards how you use new technologies, but what we like to do is we like to use new technologies and figure out ways that they can still help to solve old problems. It's one thing to live in a world that's this small and cater to the 11,000 people that might jump onto a trend, but what we like to do is we like to look at all these new trends and figure out which ones really have the legs and that are going to get out there in the next 18 months and get ahead of the curve and get our clients some early mover advantage. Everyone here has said a lot of great things, which I totally agree with. Some of the things that we're really interested in is obviously, we really look at the collision of social media and social networks. We certainly have a lot of our views as to, I personally think that, I think Facebook is a wonderful tool, and I think that MySpace is a great tool, and all of those sites are out there. But I truly believe that they are opt-in social networks. They are not true social networks. So going back to you and saying that your best social network is in your address book, I couldn't agree with you more. We have a really strong point of view about that, and we're taking that, and we're also looking at location-based services and figuring out what does that mean in a mobile environment. So what's really nice about this panel, and going back to what you said about I want to go mobile, I believe that too. A lot of my clients want to go mobile, and we want to see them go mobile, but we don't want them to take their websites and put them on a phone. We think that's also a real flawed idea as well. It's really understanding, Organic always takes a real empathy-led approach to everything that we do. So what we like to do is we like to study consumer behavior. We like to see how people want to use their phones and then figure out for our brands, how can you develop something that's going to get into their lifestyle and you can become reliable by giving them access everywhere and anywhere where they are. So, thanks.
Okay, thanks, Chad. So, quick wrap up, and then I'm really happy to take any questions. Really wanted to get discussion going. There's obviously a lot of stuff around social and social interaction. There's a lot of stuff on. Let's not think about the mobile as a shrunk down desktop, which actually I sort of agree with. I think there's a lot more opportunity than that because the phone is with you all the time. And then there's a whole lot of stuff around using the phone to control devices around you and so on and so forth. I don't know if anybody's ever seen it, but I've actually got this is a Bluetooth watch, for instance, made by Fossil. And it's actually, you can actually drop onto it. So when my phone rings, the caller ID comes up on here. So I can actually see who's calling without looking getting my phone out, and I can just say, no, I don't want to call you, you know. You can actually then just terminate the call on the watch, right? And you can see what MP3s are playing. For instance, I'm listening to music, I can see what the track is. There's a whole bunch. If I get an email, I can see if I've got emails coming in, if SMSs are coming in. And it just goes down onto my watch. Right? So you're going to see a lot more of that sort of the watch being controlling devices around you, the interaction with other people through the phone and so on and so forth. So those are the sort of things I think we're excited about, we're really excited about as a panel and the future and the opportunities. But as I say, I'd love to take any questions. Has anybody got any questions that they're burning at? Do stand up and just come up to the microphone if possible. If failing that, just shout them out and I'll repeat them. Otherwise, I'll ask some quick questions to the panel myself. Okay, so go ahead.
Can I just do it before we get into
Yeah, sure.
So I'm still sort of new to the whole smartphone game. Very recently, I've seen a lot of great things like, maps integrated with GPS and stuff like that. The silver light I actually saw yesterday kind of just takes it off in a whole new direction. Have you guys seen anything else that has just totally blown your mind away that you would never think like on a phone that we're actually doing these days? I mean, 2 years ago, when I think that GPS is following you everywhere and showing you where you're at, integrated with all these map storage online with Windows Live and stuff like that. Anything else that's gonna just caught your eye that you're kind of hoping we go towards, like other innovative things like the program yesterday?
Throw one thing. I mean, I think it's interesting. The smartphone market's an interesting theme because, like a lot of us here probably use smartphones, but mass consumers don't. They use the cheap free phone on Verizon and English. I think that's an important thing to think about in terms of the development of market from a mass perspective. But on the smartphone specifically, I think stuff like iScoot is phenomenal. It's basically a Skype client on smartphone, so it allows you to use GPRS or Edge or whatever, or Wi-Fi to be able to connect to your Skype address book over your smartphone. I think that kind of stuff of looking at how converged networks and multiple WAN connectivity is able to be extended from the device in different ways. That's probably the coolest thing I've seen in a while.
I think that although it's not necessarily a new technology, but I think what Google did when they launched Google Maps Mobile for the BlackBerry client, as well as I think it's also a Java application that runs on other phones as well, which essentially will do location, will serve you the location based on its best guess, but based on the cell tower data that's out there. Now, that's not anything that's new. There's been a lot of projects that are out there. In fact, there's a couple of APIs, and Yahoo just launched FireDog yesterday, which is going to be another service that lets you use all of that. And I think what's great about that is that all of a sudden people then get it. You know, like maps are complicated. Like location-based services is one of the most complicated things in the world. It sounds so easy. It sounds really easy to say, okay, you're on this corner on 37th Street and Broadway in New York City. Okay, simple. Okay, show me what businesses are around me. We always think about things as we're looking straight ahead, but when all of a sudden there's a 28-story building that has at least 20 businesses on each one of those floors, all of a sudden you're completely overwhelmed. So what's really, really interesting is that looking at the new ways of which we can not only pinpoint your location, but now contextually serve you what we think that you're looking for. So I think that the whole mobile startup scene is bananas. I mean, it's so exciting out there to get an email from one of your colleagues every day saying, have you seen this? And here's a company that's doing this that's differently. But also, these people are doing things without complicated equipment. Like, you know, you always have to develop for the freest phone available, right? Because that's the only way you're going to get scale. And ringtones are a great way to do that. But when you're looking at things like, you know, GPS-based phones, there's not a lot of them out there. Despite, it's like, let's all accept the fact that we live in a very insular world, okay? How many people here have a smartphone? Okay. Let's go, you know, now let's go out to the casino floor, okay, and ask them how many people have a smartphone. You know, we don't have those. So I think that any time that you see innovation, something that's like a very sophisticated idea that doesn't rely on sophisticated equipment, that's the stuff that really surprises me.
Can I ask another question? How many people have used their smartphone as a flashlight? Yeah.
Of course.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. So I just sort of, I mean, not to, I mean, I think it's a real question about where innovation is happening and where there are new applications that open our eyes to the possibilities. But going back to something that David said about it's just the way that people end up using these devices because of the ubiquity so many people using them. It's true for everything that's invented, but when people get a hold of it, it becomes something different. It seems even truer somehow for mobile applications.
I agree. I mean, I think that I think it really, in the end, the innovation right now for the next 5 years is going to be coming from people, just because for so long people really haven't had that much access to these tools. And it's kind of what I was saying before about it's finally okay to go mobile because people are, I think, are actually ready for it. But another example, just to get back to your question, which that I thought was amazing was the Twitter Google map of the political convention. I don't know if you guys saw that. It's not necessarily. Did people see that? Essentially, Twitter and Google Maps hooked up, and you could Twitter your impressions of what was happening in the presidential race, and you can go to you can go to use your PC. You can go and all those comments start appearing in a location-based way. So you can, some guy from Alabama thinks this, and it goes over to the guy from Pennsylvania thinks this. It's not something you would look at your mobile phone, but it's something that you send from your mobile phone, which gives it a location of where you are and puts it on that map. And it's actually technically not that complicated, given that both of these pieces of software exist, and there's lots and lots of people are using it and watching it, and it really comes from a need that people have and an interest they have, as opposed to like something we think that they need.
Yeah. On your question about games, I can be a little bit more specific. There are three types of games that really interest me from a mobile perspective. The first one would be the device, the capability of a device. So for instance, like an iPhone, they have an accelerometer, they make great games. For those phones that don't have an accelerometer, they actually use the camera. So we have a game called Lawn Darts, where you can actually swing the phone like that, and based on the camera sensor, be able to use that as a mechanism for gameplay, which is pretty interesting, right? That's the first one. The second type of games that would be very good is an extension of an existing game. So for instance, if you play World of Warcraft, I'm sure at least somebody here plays World of Warcraft, right? No? Great, I'm the only geek here. Okay, anyway. So you have this massively multiplayer online gaming environment. You play on a PC, you play on a console. Great experience. Don't try and shove that whole game into the phone. That's not going to work. Take an extension and say, okay, in the game you fight, yeah, you go questing, you do crafting, you do trading. Those are the non-active, very active things you can do online. So why don't you bring those to the phone? So imagine if I was commuting back home, I can be chatting with my friends, they are playing online. I can be doing trading. The trade comes in like an eBay trade to sell my magical sword, whatever. It comes into my phone. So it's a complement to a game. That's the second kind of game you want to see. The third kind of game that I really would like to see is taking a real world environment, using your phone as a tool. For instance, how many of you have heard of this game called Assassins? I mean, it's played very well in San Francisco and those places where you register on a website and, okay, then you assign a target. You're supposed to locate this guy and then either kill him with a water pistol or something, right? Now, you can do that with a phone. Why can't you do that with a phone? Take a picture, upload that picture, and then it assigns you another target. So phone as a complement to a real-world game. So three things that would really be interesting that you can make use of mobile devices.
Yeah, I think the interesting thing for me is, and I think it was alluded to by some other members of the panel, is the way that people use things, use technology is not necessarily the way we expect them to use technology. In many cases, they use it in a way that has a lot of impact on their lives, but we don't really see it necessarily. And that can be a very simple piece of technology. I think we've talked about location services, and those are great. But actually, as somebody said, the vast majority of phones out there are standard feature phones, which just do audio. And yet, even those phones have the ability to have a huge impact on people, on society, and on business. So the example that really excited me was an example out of India, in fact, called the Fishermen of Kerala. Hands up who's heard about the Fishermen of Kerala. Okay, I'll tell you the story very quickly. The west coast of India is a region called Kerala. It's a very beautiful area, but it's actually quite difficult to get to. The infrastructure is not terribly good down there. And so it's actually quite difficult for them to get food down to that area, money into the area, and so on and so forth. So the people there are very poor. This is, a lot of the world is very poor. They don't have smartphones. They don't have a lot of the things we have today. And so what was happening was that in those towns, most of the people on the coast actually got their food from fishing. So every day, a little fishing fleet from each town would go out, try and catch fish, then come back and feed the town. Of course, what was happening was that sometimes they'd go out and they wouldn't catch fish, in which case the town went hungry, or they went too much fish, and they came back and the fish just rotted because there's no way of storing it. They put in cell phone towers down the whole of the length of the coast as a piece of infrastructure, and the fish merchants bought a phone, and what the fishermen got a phone as well. And now what happens is that the fishermen go out, and if they catch fish, they phone up and down the coast, asking who will give them the best price for the fish. And then they go back to the town that's giving the best price. Immediately, the fishermen do a lot better because they get a better price for their fish. The people in the towns do a lot better because now they're being fed properly, and there's a lot less wastage. We here in America, and we call that supply chain management, and it's all done on computers with lorries. You know what? In these areas, it has a huge impact. A lot of starvation has been wiped out on that west coast. The whole area is now much healthier and much wealthier because of a very simple thing, just a standard feature phone and cell phone. So being used in ways that we can't think about it. And when you start putting phones into that sort of environment where people do things in the way we don't do here in the West, you can start to see some really interesting ways of doing business that are enabled in those countries. So I think that's what excites me, is if you can get that with something as simple as a feature phone, when you start thinking about smartphones, and how those can be used to completely change the way we think about doing business, will be really interesting. So go ahead.
I think, okay, we have very innovative uses of mobile technology as SMS in not so much developed regions, okay. But in terms of trend, now most phones, I mean most of the newer models, they are always on. So I think there's a certain challenge because from my desktop I can step back, I can close my eyes. But a cell phone is pretty much like my ears. I can't stop hearing things. So because I have my cell phone all the time and it's always on. So the trend, if we don't do anything about that, it's going to be like a tsunami of emails flowing into it's like a open faucet. So how we can, I wish my smartphone was smart enough to filter what's really relevant. I know there are some really nice smart applications like alerts from, like Yahoo. Yahoo has a lot of nice alerts. So I can choose, if anything happens, if I get an email from my boss, I get an alert in my cell phone. But I would like you to talk a little bit about this scenario. Thank you.
You go ahead.
Yeah, as I was alluding to earlier, where, I truly believe, and I think that this is certainly, obviously there's Microsoft people here, but I think where MSN wants to go, where Yahoo wants to go, and Google wants to go with Gmail, which is, if you can start really looking at your mail, and I think Microsoft's probably, have anybody here used Zobni yet? If Zobni is inbox spelled backwards, okay? And I recommend that you all go out there and apply for the beta. I think now they're turning it around in about 48 hours. Zobni is a plugin for Outlook. Have you used it? Yeah. Okay. So what happens is it's a plugin that runs in Outlook, and what it does is it looks at your mail store, and it basically puts together your relationships. And there's some really interesting logic that's there. Because let's say, for example, let's say we all work in the same company. So if I get messages from you, and they're coming, and they're frequent, quite a bit, but it's coming from the same domain, short messages, maybe not very many attachments, maybe you're classified as a business friend, as opposed to maybe my mom, who might send me 15 messages a day, maybe even 20, but not a lot of attachments. Sometimes they're pictures, things like this. So essentially, if we can start taking a real look at our day-to-day communication, so let's talk about your phone log, okay? Who you're calling every day, who's calling you, what time they're calling. All of these things, and start really looking at the logic that's behind these connections, we can start figuring out your social graph. And I guarantee that social graph is a little bit stronger and more reliable than Mark Zuckerberg's strategy, which is you'll opt in to tell me who your friends are. Because the reality is, it's like, you look at is everybody here on Facebook, or most of you on Facebook? And are most of you on LinkedIn as well? I'm assuming that a lot of you are. So what happens? You're going to meet somebody here, right? Maybe you're going to exchange business cards with somebody. Is that person your friend? Or is that person somebody that's now an acquaintance? So you take all this information, we figure it all out, okay? What's going to happen is that eventually those types of rules are going to start to apply to your communication devices. So for example, when it's 11 o'clock at night and a phone call comes in, your rules are going to say, unless it's a friend who's maybe a high communicative friend, that's when it's going to go through. Or if it's family, it's going to go through. Otherwise, it's going to go to voicemail. But then start thinking about those rules when it applies to the day-to-day business and it looks at your Outlook calendar. So who would you be interrupted for in the middle of a day if you're in a meeting with clients? Maybe your wife? Babysitter? Steve Ballmer. So those types of things, you'll be able to set those rules. So I think eventually what we're looking at, and I'm sorry to get at this in a very long way, is that you're going to start prioritizing what is important to you. And by setting those rules, that's going to start, influencing all of your communication devices.
Chet, the question was also asked about brands. I agree with everything you said, and I would actually extend what you said to apply to your relationship with corporations,
right?
With whom you either do business or as a consumer with whom you do business. So it's like you said, well, you're going to get this tsunami from, let's say you've got, location-based awareness and you've indicated some interest in Starbucks and Walgreens and Safeway, and and it's like you want to get an alert every time you go by. Well, no. Do you want to know every time, like my kids' size diapers are on sale at the grocery store I go to? Actually, yeah. So there's a similar there's a similar set of relevancy rules that we will in the end be allowed to set up for ourselves that will control that. And if we're helping marketers to reach you, then we want to abide by those rules so that the device is not abused, and so that you're not so turned off that you're like, I'm never going to install another application, or I'm never going to let another, if it's a company, I'm never going to let them put something on my phone. I would sometimes use the analogy of your keychain, and if you have any loyalty cards for, I'm going to stick with like this sort of Walgreens Safeway analogy. Yeah, Dwayne Reed. So if you got a Dwayne, if you're New Yorker, you've got to have a Dwayne Reed loyalty card in your keychain, because you could go to Dwayne Reed every like twice a day. But you don't have CVS, you don't have Walgreens. Like you choose. There's only so much room on your keychain, and even though these devices have bits, and there's pretty soon a very large amount of space on them for another application, we only have so much headspace available. To your point.
One thing I want to add on that is that I think that there's been this evolution of communication modality, and so most of us here in the room probably use email. I manage my staff at the Sidekick. A lot of kids use SMS. A lot of kids now are using social networking sites, which is essentially asynchronous profile-based messaging. Yeah, I think there's a stat that came out in Pew that was kids today, 13 to 17, check their email once a week and their Facebook profiles 10 times a day. And I think, maybe it's Omni or tools like Grand Central, but it's just management, different communication modalities convey certain types of information. So if I send an SMS, maybe it's because I don't want to talk to you right now. Or maybe an instant message is a way to avoid a meeting by conveying a very specific piece of information. I think that increasingly we'll adopt different types of tool sets to address those sorts of communication issues, as well as lots of filters and rule-based type of things.
The one thing that I think, especially with like the Zogby thing, which I think is really interesting and very useful for some people, and definitely a driver of innovation, but it's like another one of those things where like it's something that's really interesting for a certain small group of people, and I know that eventually we're going to all figure it out, and then more people will use it, and that's how kind of it works. But there's still not enough stuff, I think, being developed for people with regular phones who don't have 150 voicemails or whatever it is a day, and are perfectly fine having their phone ring sometimes. And I really still see this as like it could really just be because that's where the money is, and we're trying to money's fueling a development of innovation at sort of the point of the needle. But I really think there's a big market for.
Well, I think I agree with you, because I think looking at Zobni data isn't very interesting after you figure out who your top 10 friends really are. I mean, that's kind of interesting, and when you find out kind of who you speak to the most and stuff like that. But I eventually think that tools like Zobni become transparent. They get absorbed by the operating system, because, like it or not, your life is run. My CEO of my company always says that his life is run by Outlook, and it's true. And for good or for bad, your life may be run by Vista or by Mac OS or through some other operating system. The reality is, because it is managing your life. I mean, yes, we live in the cloud with everything that we do online every day, but going back to it, where does everything start? Square one. It starts with that start button. That's in that lower left-hand corner.
Okay, so another question back. Actually, I'll come back to you in a second, if I may, because we've talked a lot about social networking side of things. I just like to throw into the panel and say everything seems to be Web 2 now. So it's this whole social, everybody talking, chatting all the time, Twitter, etc. I mean, I was involved in some of these things. Like I actually drew the line at Twitter because I'm not sure anybody really wants to know when I go to the bathroom and those sort of things. So I think there's going to be a certain amount of a backlash against a lot of this social stuff that's going on. What does the panel think about that?
I think in small ways you're right. I mean, like there's a sort of, I'm going to call it a geek community that got very involved and everyone signed up for Facebook, and then I'm like, wait, I'm voting which one of my colleagues is the hottest and would be best to date, you know? And so there's a backlash where it's like, oh, maybe that's not where my professional community should be hanging out so much. But does that mean that there's a backlash against this form of interaction that we can call social, that dynamic in a more abstract way? It's just going to get absorbed. I mean, like, it's going to be absorbed and further promulgated. I mean, that's inevitable and useful and I don't know. I want to say wonderful.
I think that the biggest problem with Web 2.0 and social networking and things like that are the semantics that are involved. I don't think social computing is much of a trend as it is. It's an evolution of functionality. And the reality is that as the tools get better and they become easier to use, people are going to share things. One of the biggest, I get involved with a lot of clients. It doesn't happen as much anymore because I think I've now seen them all and had to sit down with them where they can't come in anymore and say, we want to build a social network, because they just have all these words and they assemble them.
Yeah.
And you're just like, no, you don't, and then you can say, well, here's our social strategy, and they'll say, and I have a very big financial client, and they'll say, but we don't want people to know who each other are. And I'm like, no, just because it's social doesn't mean that. It simply means, like, a simple social tool, and in bare essence is, was this page helpful for you? Because what's happening is that the community is allowed to contribute to the greater good. And I think that when it comes to Twitter, I agree. I think people jump on things and they overuse them. And what happens is that then their functionality or the relevance kind of expires. But what happens is it's nice to know that Twitter is a mobile broadcasting channel that's available to me anytime I need to use it. I don't use it every day. I use it for, like, when I'm walking around the casino floor in Vegas and I see fanny packs. I think that's kind of fun to tell my friends that I've seen more fanny packs than Velcro sneakers today, because I have seen a lot of Velcro sneakers
I love
too.
Velcro sneakers.
But you know what I mean? And so you would get a laugh out of that. Like, I have a very good friend who's a reporter, and his Twitter feed to me is one of my daily reads now at the end of the day, because he's just like writes the snarkiest comments about the industry that I'm in, and I kind of really enjoy that. And to me, that's my gossip page every day. So.
It's sort of also like under the radar too. It's like how political candidates send out like the really harsh negative stuff they send out through the mail, because for some reason that doesn't ever end up anywhere, and like that's kind of Twitter is too. Like,
so the gentleman at the back had a question.
Yeah, hi, good afternoon. I'm just interested in mobile phones become next G, 3G generation. It's obviously going to have a lot more broadband capabilities. What do you think the application is going to come out for this mobile world and broadband?
So the question was, what's the broadband use of broadband on the phone? What's that going to look like? You haven't spoken a lot, so.
For me to start? Okay. I think the most obvious use is media, right? Music and video, TV, that kind of stuff. Whether you connect to an online streaming service or connect back to your home to watch your media from your home, that's just one obvious implementation. But broadband can also be used for sharing of files. I don't want to say that word in Microsoft. You're not allowed to say, BitTorrent, but But I mean, you can use that as a not just to share, pirated data, but actually good data, good information. That's a very good mechanism.
Call it personal data.
It's personal data, yeah. Other things for broadband, well, you will see the broadband increase more and more to the point where you can even have live camera feed from one device to another. Nowadays, you even have it in 3G, right? You have video calls from one person to another. So I guess you just go how the PC goes.
I'd say even more interesting, though, is sort of 4G, right? So right now, we're talking about a lot of WiMAX networks, and I think there's a big challenge in that 3G is good enough. I mean, the reality is am I going to transfer movies on my phone when I'm out? When I'm in my house, I have Wi-Fi. And so I think the challenge is an implementation. How do you create business models around this? One of the things that carriers have been excited about over the last year has been TV on your phone. Well, I didn't watch TV on my PC, so why do I watch it on my phone? I'm not really sure how that use case makes sense, and I'm not going to pay $100 a month for that. And so I think 4G is even more problematic in that your entry price points are going to be $200 to $400 per. And so, I take the train to Los Angeles from San Diego a lot, and I use my EVDO handset, and I feel like I'm at the office. So why would I want to pay 2 to 3x to download large videos? I mean, it doesn't make a whole lot of sense. I think the issue around the 3G stuff is how do you get to critical mass and have the right use cases to actually drive broad adoption? And I think ultimately what happens, on the digital music side where I came from, everyone was about, it's going to be original content or exclusive content or programming. The most successful things in digital music ever have been swapping files. It had nothing to do with programming or anything else. And so I think the ultimate consumer use cases will bear themselves out, but how the investments can be monetized in the near term and how demand can be created is a real problematic issue, especially when you look at the 4G stuff specifically.
I think that the easiest thing to look at, I agree, video conferencing, those are certainly things that are going to be big drivers. Going back to also the story, that you were talking about, streaming of a baby monitor. Rethinking a lot of those things. And what's kind of interesting is, I actually recently got involved with buying a lot of X10 stuff, which is a completely amazing web experience. Like, you feel like you're being ripped off at every minute, but it's cool because it's like all the things you can do in your house. And you have all these cameras that you can now put in your house, and the whole idea that they're all centralized on a website. Well, I also think about home automation as being a big part of 4G. I think of it as also as home management, but I also think distributed media really starts to make sense. I'm a big Slingbox user, especially during baseball season. I travel a lot, and I don't want to pay the fee to watch like crappy ML. Well, it's not crappy anymore because it's now all powered by Silverlight, by the way. I'm looking forward to a great summer. But I use it a lot, and one of the promises that Sling has put out there is that there's going to be a BlackBerry-based Sling player, and for me, that's going to work out really well because I don't have a 3G phone. So I'm looking forward to things like that. But the other thing which is interesting is that before I came here last night, I was home and I had like 30 minutes where I had to leave, and I wanted to rent a movie to play on my iPhone. And that's like you can't just do that. That's going to take. I mean, it probably takes about an hour by the time it all downloads, and then about another 15 minutes for it to sync up and everything like that. I don't think that that's a very compelling story. So I think about how can I watch a movie starting at home and then resume it on my phone. So I think you're starting to look at different ways to kind of consume media. Like, I'm going to start it here, move it here.
So go ahead.
Yeah. I just bring in the perspective from a country with pervasive mobile broadband, and I think you're being overly optimistic. The infrastructure that the operators put in is the cheapest possible. Even in London, where we've got 7 megabit per second HSUPA connections, there's only 1 to 2 megabits per second uphaul from each of the cells, which means you're never going to get the full capabilities of the device, and you're sharing that bandwidth with everyone who's using it. So all these visions of mobile video, pervasive file sharing, that sort of thing, they're not going to work. The killer app for mobile in the UK and Europe is location and search and mapping, finding where you are and tying things into location. Anything else is overly ambitious and will be stymied by the penny-pinching antics of the operators.
Right. That's a good point.
I think it's a valid point. It has occurred to me that there is going to be a ton of usage. If people start pushing video around, there is a certain amount of bandwidth is available, and that bandwidth, as you say, is controlled to a great extent by the operators as well. Here in the US, I don't know if it's true in the UK, but certainly here in the US, we all have unlimited plans. I always wonder if that will change, as usage goes up. Clearly, there's a lot of throttling that goes on as well.
Yeah.
Back on the back end, at all sorts of strange times, which again is less than obvious. So, anybody that's used the system here will notice the difference. I actually listen a lot to stereo. I have stereo Bluetooth headsets, so I listen to MP3s. Just walking around here, it's interesting how often my Bluetooth is dropping out as it's syncing, as it's researching for another frequency. With the amount of Bluetooth activity that's going on just here in the hotel. So I think it's going to be interesting to see what happens when we get to the limitations around the bandwidth and what Wi-Fi, WiMAX is clearly one answer to that. Again, I sort of agree that I think there's going to be a lot of issues around the bandwidth limitations. So, sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, Gavin Hoodie, I'm from Australia, so just sort of back up my colleague from Britain, where in Asia Pacific it's the establishment of broadband networks has been a little ahead of the US. And having lived in North America for a number of years and returned to Australia, I watched our family actually become immersed in this new technology. And I too am a little surprised at the optimism, or maybe the surprise that you guys aren't actually looking at some of these markets and looking at the experiences that have been had by people like ourselves. I watched our family go there and purchase, all of our children purchased phones with video over 3G networks, and they used them for about 2 months, exchanged videos, and then realised that there was no value to them in that. And 2 years on, they basically just exchange text messages now. The same thing happened with myself. I had a very intelligent phone with all of the gizmos on it, and after a while the value of it just really wasn't there for what we were paying for the service. And so I think some of the comments that were there earlier on that said that you have to really stand back and say, well, it's got to work with the most basic phone and be something very simple, because even though you're assuming that kids, and my children spent thousands of dollars on different gizmos, and they trade it and they say, well, I've got a mobile phone or a cell phone, I can send a video, or I can go back and I can get immersed in a online experience with my Xbox or my Wii or whatever, they're going to take the experience that gives them best value for money, and mobile, in Australia at least, wasn't giving it to them. So I don't know if you guys are researching that.
So,
One thing that hits that, I mean, I think just that it's fascinating is that, you know, there's been this idea that when we've gone from like, you know, we went from television to the internet, and it's like, okay, well, the brands that are successful on television are going to be successful on the internet. So in '94, Time Warner came out, they did this really big thing called Pathfinder, and we're all using Pathfinder today, I think, right? But the brands that emerged in the internet were internet brands. It's Google, it's Amazon, it's eBay, and I think the phone's the same sort of thing. Now we're suffering from the same fallacy of, oh, it's just going to be the internet on your phone. And it's not the case. That's the wrong way to think about it. And I think one of the fascinating things I heard at a panel recently, I'd like to give attribution to the right person. There's this belief that we're all going to merge this uber, super, iPhone, PSP, Xbox device. And this guy, his theory was like, it's not going to be one device. It's going to be more like the automobile market. You're going to have sports cars, you're going to have vans, you're going to have SUVs, you're going to have use case-driven devices. And I think that's something that people miss a lot. I think that's the core thing we need to think about. And right now, all the action is in the phones that don't do anything. And that's where all the usage is. And those are the early adopters who are driving the use cases. And I think focusing on that, focusing on things like the sidekick, is where the action is.
And I also
Actually, it was interesting in that I watched them download songs, videos for a while. They stopped. And now that my family actually became computer aware enough that now they compiled their list of songs that they like. Over the last 10 years, there was like 20 songs they had. So whilst before they were buying gigabyte, this and whatever, now they're down to like the smallest possible size so that they just play their standard playlists. It's really interesting how they kind of retrograde back to basic.
And just the one last thing that I was going to add is that technology will never sell itself. I mean, just because you can buy lots of things out there. I mean, there's a lot of great technically sophisticated devices that are out there. Listen, the Nokia 810 tablet computer is absolutely awesome.
Love it.
But they're really, besides
No one uses
being an enthusiast, you're not going to do it. I mean, the reality is that, like, okay, I'm a big iPhone user, and I haven't sent an MMS message on it because I can't. But the reality is that I also love Flickr. And now I wonder if I take pictures for myself, or do I take pictures for my Flickr participation? And it's the same thing that Twitter is. You know, Twitter gives people an opportunity to text in. So you have to give somebody a real compelling reason, and that's our job. Our job is to create applications that are going to get people who have these devices and give them an opportunity to use them.
Well, I was gonna ask you if you saw, I mean, to this point, if you saw your kids in this case stop sharing videos of each other or even pictures of each other. I mean, maybe they just don't send them to each other, but if there's someone else far away to whom they would want to share those pictures, they would make it worth doing so. I mean, that if that utility is not there, and like Chad is saying.
Well, there were two things. One thing was the vendors of the 3G networks and network required more cost for it to actually provide the service. They weren't prepared to pay for the bandwidth. So they actually dropped the mobile plan. And like our children, like most people in this room, they go through phones all the time, and they ended up just ditching the entire phone $1 a plan and going to these other phones. And they would then, rather than send videos, they would take some pictures, but it would be infrequent. And it became apparent, though, that they would use iPhones, competing technologies, to say where they felt the value for money was. So it was fairly soon, the wow factor went away very quickly, and they found other ways to communicate, whether it be on internet-enabled iPhones, that type of thing. Some of them went to that, others just went back to their PCs, and as I said, others just went back and just compiled playlists and really didn't interact other than with technology.
Yeah, one of the reasons is Australia has no unlimited data plans, right? Everything is all by per kilobyte.
Well, they have plenty of capability, but it doesn't matter if you've got unlimited data, eventually somebody pays for it.
Yeah, that's true.
And the thing is, it was noticeable that they went back to things like Facebook and that as their mechanism for collaboration. So you might say mobile is like a new domain, but it still competes with other forms of community.
Okay. Let's take another question.
Yeah, this is a quick one. I just was looking around the room. I know this is a I want to go mobile session. And I think we've got someone that just won a brand new Windows mobile device that's in here. If you guys are caught wearing a Windows mobile beret, you're eligible for winning a device. And today, this gentleman right back here got caught wearing his Windows mobile device. Got one. Right here in the Windows mobile session.
Word from our sponsor.
Yeah.
So go ahead.
You didn't win. You have it on the hat, though.
Quick question. Sort of changing the topic, do you see mobile replacing pencil and paper in business applications? And if so, how do we help sell that to management? My example is we do collection of maintenance data down on the shop floor. And we were just, and we've tried to do the tablets and management won't pay the money for them. We've tried to do the handhelds and you have to recode other stuff for them. But everyone has a phone nowadays. So if I send a maintenance guy out and he has to record that he added 30 pounds of Freon to the refrigeration system to comply with EPA, can I just have him phone it in and it goes right on to our SQL database? And how do I sell management on that? And do you see that as an emerging trend?
Can I answer this?
Yeah,
Actually, it was just I just saw something really fascinating. I'm going to forget, but a group out of MIT is doing a project in sub-Saharan Africa where they teach African students how to write SMS applications in 3 to 5 days. So they have a workshop, they bring them in for 3 to 5 days. And a lot of these students have gone out, and specifically one of them was somebody who collected data for about malaria in his region. And I think the guy was telling, in the space of 2 to 3 months after that, something like 70% of the collectors were using this SMS application. And again, it was super simple. It was like he used to have the hand slips. He used to collect them all up, bring them back. It would take a while to process the whole thing. They wrote this application in 3 days. Very simple using SMS. So I definitely think it can be done. But a lot of times it's like these people needed this. It was really, really important for them. Sometimes in this world, some of those things make things more efficient, but they also involve a lot of change inside of a large organization that maybe isn't really ready for that change. But I think eventually your organization or whatever will definitely need it. So I definitely think those simple things are really sort of on the horizon.
It also depends on what kind of data you're collecting, right? If you're collecting drawn, handwritten kind of data, then it's going to be difficult to replace a pen and paper. Whereas if you're just collecting numbers, something that you can do by pressing buttons, then that would be maybe an alternative to do, right?
So I've done a little bit of mobile development in J2SC, and it was painful, especially from C#, really painful. One of the biggest negatives for me with deploying an application is that to install it on your phone, you're installing an application, security issues, you can't do things like we were trying to file system stuff like this, basically index media, XML, last style stuff. It was just really difficult to do with the security stuff. Do you agree with me in the opinion that Sun could be doing more to make the development experience less painful?
Wait, so your question is that you're asking if there's not a more open application development environment that's possible?
The hard part about the development in mobile in general is that we had somebody, recently, where they're like, I want a phone that can download videos and all that stuff. It's like, well, the battery will stop running in about an hour. And so, a lot of the phones that support Java, it's just, they made a conscious decision to not allow you to go outside the JVM down to the device and access like the address book and the camera book and things like that. Whereas other languages like Brew, which are also hard to deliver in, but it's more develop in, but it's also C, you can get down to the device. There's just a lot of issues. The core piece of development that you can do on the broadest amount of phones, they're constrained. They're constrained in heap size, they're constrained in power, and a whole bunch of stuff. You can develop a nice Series 60 Symbian application for an N95, but there's 100,000 people in the world who have that phone. I mean, do you want to, where's the economics for you to do that? And that's a big problem.
And the other thing is, don't forget that who really is the customer in these situations. And it's the carriers. The carriers are the ones that are buying the phones in bulk, and they're trying to protect the customers at the end of the day. Because we can go after that small group, but the reality is that if we're going after the freest phone possible, those are completely controlled by the carriers. And I know that that's not the case in every market. Like, just spend any time in Scandinavia and it's phone first, bring your network here. But in the United States, which is considered to be one of the best emerging mobile markets for applications and for all of the enhancement opportunities that are out there, I mean, it's carrier-led.
Sorry, just on that though, do you think that as services become more sort of HTTP, less converting work, less SMS, you think carriers will become less sort of important, and that kind of thing will shift?
I think, I don't know if I'm answering your question by saying this, but one thing that's really interesting about the BlackBerry, so the BlackBerry 88 series has an integrated GPS unit, and in some cases you don't even know you have it until you pay to turn it on, which is really kind of fun and neat, awesome to explain to people, especially end users. But the one thing that's really interesting about it is that it's one thing to write an application that calls upon the GPS's API, but you can also do it through JavaScript. So clearly there was something there that BlackBerry made a significant effort to let people know that, okay, your organization, so it's like when you look at smartphones and you look at corporate environments that buy a lot of these smartphones, one of the reasons why they buy them is because they can control them remotely, and that was a big part of the iPhone announcement today, is that they're going to be able to, I don't know if they're going to do anything with security policies, but that's a big thing that we were just talking about before. People buy Windows Mobile because they know that they can control the field force that's out there. And one of the things that they can do is no third-party application,
Bless you.
I'm sorry.
No, but that becomes a big problem for you as a developer, right? Which is, I want to sell these people these applications, but their device won't allow them to do it. So what are the alternatives? And the alternative is to go through the web browser.
But here's something that I'd say that's important. I have IP access. All my content goes through IP connections. I don't have the signing issues you have because I work with the carriers. But the fundamental issue, to me, is political and economic. We're in the middle of a spectrum auction right now where the 700 megahertz spectrum is about 4.7 billion. That's for just the rights to do something with it. Then you got to build the base stations and towers. So the carriers, it's like they're not just going to give you an IP-based connection unless there's a business model that makes sense for them. And so, I mean, I think if we're truly focused on reform, it's not about Android and open platforms. It's reform how we do spectrum auctioning. I mean, we use game theory to optimize how we get the most money for spectrum, and then the carriers make all of us pay. So we made money from the spectrum auction, but then you're going to pay as a consumer for that. And so if there was more public good thought about in the process of how spectrum's allocated, I think some of these issues would be addressed rather than, a lot of the rhetoric around how it's been done currently.
Yeah. carriers clearly coming to do that. There are other people as well. One of the things that I didn't realise until a few days ago was around map was around some of the issues to do with GPS, for instance, because I don't know if anybody's used it, but Live Search actually provides a mapping technology, and if you've got a GPS, it will track. And it has to come down over the carriers every time. It loads the map so as you drive around, which seems really stupid. So I went back to what our product group said, this seems really stupid. Why don't you just cache the maps? And they say, actually, it's a licensing issue. There are only two places that maps come from. One is Navtech and
Color outlets.
Yeah, that's right. And the licensing issue, the licensing around those maps is such that you can only use it, once and download it once. You're not allowed to cache it on the device with our licensing. If you do anything different, you have to pay a lot more for licensing and so on and so forth. So you have to remember that underneath all of these things is a set of economic models and business models that go on, both from vendors such as ourselves, vendors such as the map vendors and the carriers as well. We're all looking at how you can make money, how things are going to be monetized, etc., and what the economic models look like. And to a great extent, that's not actually been. Nobody's actually worked that out. What it's going to look like in terms of. I talked a little while ago about bandwidth, unlimited bandwidth. The gentleman from Australia said that at some point somebody's going to have to pay for the bandwidth. I think that's true as well. We don't actually understand what a lot of these models look like, and until that sort of settles down, I think we're going to see a lot of weird things happening in terms of end user experience, which are caused solely by the fact that the economic models aren't quite as you expect.
No, and it is the case that the complexity of those models and the fragmentation and friction that result definitely slow down the development and servicing of innovation and of new mobile application development, and then I mean, to be cynical, then it doesn't get to you to get a chance to try it out or to develop the utility. But yeah, I mean, and that is a reason to be less crazily optimistic. But hey, we have to push. It's got to come around if we all want it to, right?
Yeah, I think when you look back at the PC experience, and you can say whether Windows was good or bad or indifferent or whatever. The thing it did do is it brought a common platform with a common monetization strategy a common economic strategy across the whole of the PC platform, which everybody knew they could then build to. They could build to it technically, and they could build to it in terms of a model where they could actually make money from it. And that, we don't have that today in the mobile space. So, go ahead.
Sure. It's Alan Locke from Yellow Pages Group in Canada. I mean, we in Canada, we have developed a lot of mobile applications for the mobile phones and through different channels such as SMS and IM and voice. But I want to hear what the panelists have to say about where is the next generation mobile applications going to reside. The problem with the current web phones today is, do you expect a user to actually type in a long, complex URL on a 10-digit pad? And the answer to most questions is no, unless you're featuring on a browser, in the home deck on page 1, your website's not going to get any exposure to anywhere unless you actually own a smartphone. So the only way anyone can actually promote the application is to piggyback themselves onto another existing transport that is easier to use, such as two-way SMS or IM or something else. But where do you guys see the next generation app transport, and where ultimately will any of the mobile application developers will actually succeed?
I mean, I think that we were just actually talking about the answer to that question, which is, I mean, it's a good question, and it's still very relevant, but the complexity of the marketplace that we're describing, and the fact that you need an OS manufacturer to be behind your application for it to be installed, and you need the carriers first and foremost, at least in our environment, to be behind it, and then it would be helpful if you had an aggregator. So by the time you've worked through that stack, it's definitely a tough environment. I mean, more power to the people who are making that happen.
But you'll see. I think where you're going to see the innovation in the near term is, and in WAP's a great example, like the WAP media experience. I go to a web browser, I go to a page, click on video, WAP browser suspends, media player opens, play video, close media player, open WAP browser, navigate back. There's no cut and paste. And I think where the carriers are going to focus on innovation is stuff like on-device portals and active UI. And I think if you look at what's been real successful in the US on the marketing side, My Circles from Alltel and My Faves from T-Mobile, which is just it's a marketing plan today. They elevate 5 people from your PIM, and that's sort of where your desktop starts. And there's no way, you don't have to click 3 times to get the address book. Well, that's great, but how do we take it to the next level? Well, there's my phone number. Here's my email address. Oh, here's my Flickr photo stream. Oh, here are my blog posts. Here's some friend requests. I think you're going to see that innovation happen sooner rather than later. I think a lot of carriers are focused on that. I think the OEMs are focused on that. But then you have a whole lot of issues around data normalization. How do I, invite Lonely Girl 15 as my friend on MySpace and my address book on my phone? There's a lot of technical issues, but I think you're going to see people focus that way. I think that's probably the easiest place for them to do that, short of redoing how the OEMs do their handsets, how the networks get redeployed and things like that. I think that's probably the best, earliest place where action's going to happen.
One thing to look at is there's a recent launch by the New York Times research group called Shift-D. If you guys haven't seen that, it's pretty interesting, because it's one of these things where it's not breakthrough technology, but it's real simple, right? Because it appeals to the notion of how do I take information that's on my desktop and move it to my phone, and vice versa. How do I share? Like, for example, you're running out, you got to go to a restaurant. You look it up maybe on MSN Maps, right? Because that's the right thing to say. You go to MSN Maps, you copy and you paste it into your on your Shift-D page, but then when you go to your phone, there it is. So think of it as, your new notebook. And those are the kinds of things that tend to work with how are you going to start moving URLs into the phone. Because I agree with you. In fact, I just did a program for a travel company for mobile enrollment, which to a loyalty program. And the biggest, it's all SMS based, but the biggest feedback that we get is people don't know where the @ sign is or where the dot is. Now, and that's kind of a complicated thing, and people don't on these free phones don't know how to get a dot in. Chances are they're not going to be able to enter a URL. So, the programs that we use is generally start with the shortcode, push them a URL, and it works. It works. That's what the entertainment business does. Every time you see a billboard in a major market, and it says get alerts to know when this TV show is going to be on the air, just send it in, and then they push you something back to register if you want more information. That works. That's the best way, because once I know that somebody's engaged with me, then see the reality. See, we're always focused with how to make the shortest experience possible, because those are people that we don't think are interested in what we want to tell them. But if you say, I'm a hand raiser, I want to know more about this television show, it's okay if I send you 2 messages, because the reality is I'm going to deliver an experience for you or make good on a promise, and remind you when this television show is going to be on. So that tends to work a lot.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Okay.
I'm sort of curious why people like yourselves involved with mobile applications don't really talk much about IVR kinds of applications.
About what?
IVR kinds of applications, which sort of relates to
IVR.
Yeah. We built a few years ago. We built a game that ran on the Reuters sign in Times Square that lets people race a car using their phone. And I thought that was would be kind of popular, but it was popular with people in Times Square, but it never went anywhere because it wasn't cool.
But companies like Viacom, MTV, where we do some stuff with MTV Trace right now, they're doing text to screen. So it's a really great concept. I'm at home, I can text something I see on the TV. So they're experimenting with stuff like that. I think it's still fairly early, but they do like the response rates, things like that.
I mean, I would say that show me a sign in Times Square that actually does sell something. I mean, the reality is that you're in Times Square because your competitor is, and then the next one is, and the next one is, and it's like, oh my God, there's a big sign. Get it before. Listen. I work for Daimler Chrysler, right? Every sales pitch starts with, if you don't buy this, Ford will, right? I mean, that's generally what happens, And the reality is that Times Square is just an advertiser's playground. And a lot of people do some really innovative things, and I don't mean to say that they don't fall short on delivery, because when you program something for Times Square, you're just trying to get a piece of that engagement.
That wasn't really my question. My question is why aren't people looking for what really does work on the lowest common denominator?
There is a company called Single Point that does a lot of IVR stuff for a lot of the media companies. It's real successful. It works really well. There's not a whole lot of room for a whole lot of players in those markets, so it fragments to a couple people pretty quickly.
There's another company called Tell Me. Somebody bought them recently.
Yeah, I wonder.
Yeah. I can't stand talking to
Yeah, actually, if you look at Tell Me, has anybody here used Tell Me at all? Actually, it's very powerful, actually. I was quite surprised. But it depends where you are, I guess, to a certain extent. I think I agree with you about the voice thing. I think it is very undeveloped. And actually, even the simple stuff, like using voice recognition for finding numbers, using the phone today actually it is quite a painful experience. start my voicemail, but then I have to get my phone out to type in the numbers, which seems really stupid. So I think there's a lot of stuff. The trouble with voice is you've got to, it's got to be the whole experience end to end. It's all got to work, and that includes a reasonable amount of fairly good recognition as well. And if at any point you break that chain, you make somebody get the damn phone out of their pocket, then it's sort of rather ruins the whole experience. So I don't really understand why there's not been as much focus on the voice side of things as there should have been. And without that focus, it's a bit of a chicken and egg thing. Without that focus, you don't get a good enough experience to make people want to do it. You see what I mean? That's what I think, anyway, from what I've, the experiences I've had.
I think voice is the greatest interface that's available, right? It works across all platforms. And the reality of IVR, what's interesting about it is that when people sit down, they want to have a mobile experience. And I always think about what's going to compel me when my flight is delayed to take out my phone, and I've read all my email already. There's nothing new on my phone. It's kind of hard to either want to speak into it or to listen to something and be pushing buttons. And I know that, that might not be what you're talking about, as well as maybe the voice is. It's harder because you can't. Yeah, you know what I mean? Because it's like usually, you're on the phone like this and you're pushing buttons. I mean, so it is one of these things where you're disrupting the experience a little bit. But I also think there's something about like one thing that's really weird for me is like if I'm playing my Nintendo DS and then all of a sudden the game wants me to speak in public. Like I'm on the subway and all of a sudden it's like, okay, now you have to blow out a candle. And you're like, is anybody looking? And you're like, the microphone. Or you have to speak, or you have to bark like a dog, like in Nintendogs or something like that. And it's like, it's a little weird. And I think with mobile phones as well, it's like I'm sitting there, I kind of want to read stuff, and I want to be able to hold it away from me and all that type of stuff. So I think in some cases it works great, also for very immediate information, like flight delays and stuff like that.
Okay. So we're about out of time, so thank you very much indeed for your questions and your interest. I hope it's been of value and informative to you. And please fill in your evaluations. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.